The fluorescent lights in Robinson's pharmacy buzzed overhead with that persistent electrical hum that had become the soundtrack to my failures. I stood at the counter, my hand trembling as I held Gabrielle's prescription, the small white paper feeling impossibly heavy between my fingers. The pharmacist, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses perched on her nose and sympathy in her eyes, had just delivered the words that made my stomach drop. "I'm sorry, Ms. Coleman, but your insurance was terminated. The total will be $437. $437. The number echoed in my mind, each digit a small knife. I had exactly $63 in my checking account. My last paycheck from Morrison Financial had been 2 weeks ago, the day before they'd escorted me out of the building like a criminal. The day before my entire carefully constructed life had collapsed. There must be some mistake, I heard myself say, though I knew there wasn't. My voice sounded distant, unfamiliar. I had coverage through my employer. According to our system, the policy was canceled on the 10th. The pharmacist's tone remained professional, but I could see the discomfort in the way she adjusted her glasses, looked away, then back at me. "You can apply for the manufacturer's assistance program, but that takes 3 to 6 weeks to process." 3 to 6 weeks. Gabrielle didn't have 3 to 6 weeks. The insulin pump we'd managed to get her 6 months ago had malfunctioned last Tuesday, and until I could afford the replacement, she needed the fast-acting insulin. Without it, her blood sugar would spike dangerously. I'd already stretched our current supply beyond what was safe, rationing doses, checking her levels obsessively through the night. "I need it today," I said, and I hated how my voice cracked on the last word. "My daughter, she's only 8, she's diabetic, and without the insulin." "I understand, ma'am. I really do." The pharmacist glanced at the growing line behind me, 5 people deep, all pretending not to listen while obviously absorbing every word of my humiliation. "But I can't release the medication without payment. Perhaps you could call someone? A family member who could help?" Family. The word tasted bitter. My parents had cut me off when I'd gotten pregnant at 19, unmarried and unprepared. My sister lived in Seattle with her perfect husband and perfect children, and we'd barely spoken in 5 years. Gabrielle's father had disappeared before she was born, leaving nothing but a fake name and a forwarding address that didn't exist. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers numb as I opened my banking app one more time, as if the numbers might have magically changed. They hadn't. $63.14. I had a maxed-out credit card, a second card that had been declined last week at the grocery store, and exactly one person I could potentially ask for help. Sarah Martinez had been my closest friend at Morrison Financial, the only one who'd believed me when I'd tried to report the discrepancies I'd found. But she had 3 kids of her own, a mortgage, and had already lent me $200 last month that I hadn't been able to repay. My throat tightened, making it hard to breathe. "Can you hold it? Give me a few hours? I'll figure something out, I promise. I just need time." The pharmacist's expression softened with genuine pity, which somehow made everything worse. "I can hold it until closing, 7 o'clock tonight. But after that, it goes back into inventory." 7 o'clock. 5 hours. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat, and turned away from the counter. The prescription paper crumpled in my fist as I walked toward the exit, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not here. Not in front of all these strangers witnessing my failure as a mother. The October wind hit me as I pushed through the pharmacy's automatic doors, cold enough to cut through my thin jacket. I'd sold my good winter coat 3 days ago at a second-hand shop for $40, money that had gone to keeping our electricity from being shut off. Gabrielle's school jacket was already too small for her growing frame, and I had no idea how I'd afford a new one before winter truly arrived. I stood on the sidewalk, paralyzed by indecision. The city moved around me in its usual relentless rhythm. People hurried past, wrapped in their own concerns, their own lives, Cars flowed by in an endless stream. The world kept turning, indifferent to the fact that mine was crumbling. My phone rang, jolting me out of my spiraling thoughts. I glanced at the screen. Parkside Elementary. My heart lurched. I answered before the second ring. "Ms. Coleman?" The school nurse's voice was calm, practiced at delivering concerning news without causing immediate panic. "Gabrielle's blood sugar is reading at 340. I've given her water and had her rest in my office, but she says she felt dizzy during PE. When did she last have her insulin?" 340. Normal was between 80 and 120. I'd given her half a dose this morning, trying to make what we had left stretch until I could somehow get the prescription filled. "This morning," I managed. "I'm working on getting her prescription refilled now." "Okay." A pause, loaded with unspoken concern. "I'll keep her here for the rest of the day and monitor her levels. But Ms. Coleman, if they go much higher, I'll need to call an ambulance." "No." The word came out too sharp, too desperate. An ambulance meant the emergency room. The ER meant bills we couldn't pay, and potentially Child Protective Services asking questions about why my daughter's diabetes wasn't being properly managed. "No, I'll have the insulin by pickup time. 3:15, I promise." Another pause. "All right, I'll see you then." The call ended, and I stood there staring at my phone, at my reflection in its darkened screen. 33 years old, and I looked at least 40. Dark circles under my eyes from too many sleepless nights. Hair that needed cutting, pulled back in a messy ponytail. The blazer I'd worn to every job interview since my termination, the one I'd thought made me look professional and competent, was starting to pill at the elbows. I'd done everything right, worked 2 jobs to put myself through community college, gotten certified in accounting, landed a position at Morrison Financial, a mid-sized investment firm in downtown, saved every penny I could, built a small life for Gabrielle and me, not glamorous, but stable, safe. And then I'd noticed the irregularities, transactions that didn't match the client statements, money moving through accounts in patterns that made no sense. At first, I'd thought it was just errors, maybe system glitches. But the more I'd looked, the more I'd found. Millions of dollars flowing through shell companies with addresses that led to empty storefronts. When I'd reported it to my supervisor, David Brennan, he'd told me I was mistaken, that I didn't understand how high-level investment structures worked. When I'd persisted, when I'd documented everything and prepared to go to the compliance department, I'd been called into HR. "Your performance has been unsatisfactory," they'd said, presenting me with written warnings I'd never received, client complaints I'd never heard about, errors in my work that I knew I hadn't made. "We're letting you go, effective immediately." 2 weeks later, I'd seen the news story. Morrison Financial under investigation for money laundering. Federal agents had seized records. David Brennan's photo on the screen, along with 3 other executives I'd seen at company meetings. But my name wasn't mentioned. The whistleblower protection I'd been counting on hadn't materialized because I'd been fired before the story broke, my complaints dismissed as the whining of a disgruntled employee. And now I was here. Unemployed, blacklisted in my industry, standing outside a pharmacy unable to afford the medication that kept my daughter alive. I started walking, no real destination in mind, just needing to move. The business district surrounded me, tall glass buildings reflecting the gray October sky. Well-dressed professionals hurried past, talking on phones, clutching coffee cups from the expensive cafe on the corner. I'd been one of them once, not that long ago. Robinson's Pharmacy sat on the ground floor of the Russo building, a sleek high-rise that housed luxury condos and upscale retail. I'd never paid much attention to it before. It was just convenient, 3 blocks from my apartment, with later hours than the chain drugstore across town. I circled back, unable to go home empty-handed, unable to move forward. The pharmacy's glass front allowed me to see inside, Watch people come and go with their purchases in small white bags. Such simple transactions. Such mundane evidence of functioning lives. "Ma'am?" A security guard had materialized beside me, young and uncomfortable. "You can't loiter here." "I'm not loitering. I'm just—" What was I doing? Standing on a public sidewalk, staring at a pharmacy like it held the answers to my imploding life. I'm going. But I couldn't make my feet move, because if I left, if I went home, I'd have to face Gabrielle when she came home from school. I'd have to look into her trusting 8-year-old eyes and explain why Mommy couldn't get her the medicine she needed. Why Mommy had failed at the most basic responsibility a parent had. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I don't want to cause problems, but what's the issue here?" The voice came from behind me, deep and authoritative, with an edge that made the security guard immediately straighten. I turned, and found myself looking up at a man who seemed to have stepped out of a different reality than the one I currently inhabited. Tall, probably 6'2" or 6'3", with dark hair styled with casual precision. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my former salary, tailored so perfectly it seemed to have been painted on. But it was his eyes that caught me, dark and intense, studying me with an attention that made me feel suddenly exposed. "No issue, Mr. Russo," the security guard said quickly. "Just asking this lady to move along." "Mr. Russo." The name clicked into place. This building, the pharmacy, probably half the block. Russo Properties. I'd seen the name on buildings throughout the city, always associated with luxury and power. The kind of money and influence that existed in a stratosphere so far above my own life that we might as well have been different species. "She's not causing any trouble," the man said, his eyes never leaving my face. "Are you?" It was phrased as a question, but something in his tone suggested he already knew the answer. I should have said no, should have apologized and walked away, should have avoided drawing any more attention to myself than I already had. But I was so tired. Tired of being polite. Tired of pretending everything was fine. Tired of bearing the weight of our survival alone. "I need insulin for my daughter," I heard myself say. "The pharmacy won't release it without payment. $437. I have $63. I lost my job. I can't—" I stopped, realizing I was babbling to a complete stranger, spilling my desperation out on a sidewalk like garbage from a torn bag. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. "Come with me," he said. It wasn't a request. He turned and walked toward the pharmacy entrance, clearly expecting me to follow. The security guard had already stepped aside, his earlier officiousness replaced with deference. I hesitated for only a moment before following. What did I have to lose at this point? Pride. I'd left that at the pharmacy counter. Dignity? That had disappeared with my job. The man held the door open for me, a gesture of courtesy that felt oddly out of place given the circumstances. Inside, he walked directly to the pharmacy counter, bypassing the line of waiting customers without acknowledging them. The pharmacist's eyes widened as she saw him. "Mr. Russo," she said, her entire demeanor transforming. "What can I do for you?" "The prescription for—" He glanced at me, waiting. "Gabrielle Coleman," I managed, my voice barely audible. "Gabrielle Coleman," he repeated. "Fill it. Put it on my account." "Of course, right away." The pharmacist moved with sudden urgency, disappearing into the back. The other customers in line watched with varying degrees of curiosity and resentment. I stood frozen, not quite able to process what had just happened. "You don't have to," I started. "It's done," he said simply. Then, studying me with that same intense focus, "You worked at Morrison Financial. It wasn't a question. My heart stuttered. How did you... I make it my business to know things. He leaned against the counter with casual confidence, but his eyes remained sharp, watchful. You were the one who found the discrepancies, the whistleblower they tried to bury. My mouth went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. A slight smile touched his lips, nothing warm or friendly in it. Grace Coleman, 8 years at Morrison Financial, certified accountant, single mother. Terminated 2 weeks before the story broke. Coincidentally, I'm sure. The way he said my name, with such complete certainty, such total knowledge of my life, should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. A spark of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Anger. If you know so much, then you know I can't pay you back, I said, lifting my chin. Not for a while. Maybe not ever. So whatever you want. What I want, he interrupted smoothly, is to ensure that your daughter gets the medication she needs. Consider it an investment. An investment in what? In you. The pharmacist returned before I could respond, holding a white paper bag. Here you are, Ms. Coleman. There's a month's supply, plus a prescription for the replacement insulin pump supplies. Dr. Martinez's office faxed over the authorization. A month's supply. The pump supplies I hadn't even tried to request, because I knew we couldn't afford them. I took the bag with shaking hands, feeling its weight, the tangible proof of my daughter's continued survival. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet, Giovanni Russo said, and something in his tone made me finally look directly at him. We need to talk. About Morrison Financial, about David Brennan, and about why your testimony is going to be crucial in the case I'm building. Case? The FBI is investigating Morrison Financial for money laundering. But the accounts you discovered? They weren't just laundering money. They were cleaning funds for the Volkov organization, Russian mafia operating in my territory. His voice remained conversational, but steel ran beneath it. You noticed their operation. You documented it. That makes you the most valuable witness in a case that's been 3 years in development. The pharmacy seemed to tilt around me. Russian mafia, FBI case, witness. These were words from movies, from news stories about other people's lives. Not mine, never mine. I can't, I said. I have Gabrielle. I can't put her in danger. She's already in danger, Giovanni said flatly. The moment you started documenting those transactions, you became a threat. Do you really think David Brennan had you fired just to protect his career? He was protecting his Russian partners. And they don't leave loose ends, Ms. Coleman. The medication bag crinkled in my grip. What do you want from me? Your testimony, your documentation, everything you know. He straightened, somehow seeming even taller. In exchange, I'll provide protection for you and your daughter. A place to stay, security, medical care, everything you need. Why? The question came out sharper than I intended. Why would you do this? What's in it for you? His smile returned, cold and calculating. The Volkov organization has been encroaching on my business interests for 2 years. Marcus Volkov, their leader, is ambitious and careless. He's drawing federal attention to areas I prefer to keep quiet. By helping the FBI take him down, I eliminate a rival and position myself as a cooperating citizen. Everyone wins. Except David Brennan and the Russians. Except them, he agreed. I should have said no. Should have taken the medication and run, disappeared, changed our names, started over somewhere far away. But I was so tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of watching my daughter suffer because I couldn't provide the basics. And there was something else. Something in Giovanni Russo's dark eyes that promised he always got what he wanted. If I said no, Would he still let me walk out with the medication? Or would this brief reprieve transform into a different kind of trap? I need to think about it, I said. Think quickly, he replied. The FBI wants to move on this by the end of the month. And Ms. Coleman? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, black with silver lettering. Don't go home, not yet. The security cameras at your apartment building show a man watching your door for the past 3 days. Dark hair, leather jacket, Slavic features. Ring any bells? Ice flooded my veins. Someone had been watching our apartment, watching Gabrielle. Where should I go? My driver will take you to pick up your daughter from school, then to a hotel, the Crown Plaza on 5th. Ask for the penthouse suite. It's registered under Coleman. Stay there tonight. I'll have someone bring your things from your apartment. He made it sound so simple, so easy, as if uprooting our entire life was no more complicated than changing hotel rooms. But what choice did I have? If someone was watching our apartment, if we were truly in danger. Okay, I whispered. Smart woman. Giovanni gestured toward the door, where a black SUV had pulled up to the curb. Marcus will drive you. He's ex-military, very good at his job. You're safe with him. As I walked toward the door, medication clutched to my chest like a lifeline. Giovanni spoke again. Ms. Coleman? Grace. I turned back. His expression had shifted slightly, something almost human breaking through the calculated control. I meant what I said. I'll change your life, both of your lives. But you need to trust me. Trust. Such a simple word for such an impossible ask. But as I climbed into the SUV, as we pulled away from the pharmacy and headed toward Parkside Elementary to collect my daughter, I realized I'd already made my choice. I'd chosen survival. The Crown Plaza penthouse was obscene in its luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the skyline glittering like scattered diamonds against the darkening October sky. Marble floors stretched beneath furniture that probably cost more than every possession I'd ever owned combined. The master bedroom alone was larger than our entire apartment. Gabrielle sat on the edge of a cream-colored sofa that looked too pristine to actually use, her small hands folded in her lap, her insulin pump supplies spread on the glass coffee table in front of her. The replacement pump had been waiting for us when we arrived, along with 3 months' worth of supplies and a note in precise handwriting. Your daughter's health is non-negotiable. GR. Mom? Gabrielle's voice was small, uncertain. Why are we here? Where's our stuff? I knelt in front of her, smoothing back the dark curls that had escaped her ponytail during the school day. She looked so much like her father, whoever he really was. The man who'd given me his name as James Martinez, but had disappeared before I'd realized the driver's license he'd shown me was fake, before I'd discovered I was pregnant, before everything had become complicated. We're staying here for a little while, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, reassuring. It's like a vacation. But I have school tomorrow, and my backpack is at home. And Mr. Whiskers. Her chin trembled slightly at the mention of the stuffed cat she'd slept with since she was 3. I know, baby. Someone is going to bring our things, including Mr. Whiskers. I promise. The lie tasted bitter. I had no idea if anyone would actually retrieve our belongings, or if they'd just deliver some generic replacement items. Giovanni Russo had promised protection and security, but the specifics remained frustratingly vague. A knock at the door made me tense. I'd locked it, engaged the deadbolt, checked the peephole twice already. Through the fisheye lens, I saw Marcus, the driver who'd picked us up. Beside him stood a woman I didn't recognize, blonde and professional in dark slacks and a blazer. I opened the door, keeping myself between them and Gabrielle. Ms. Coleman, Marcus said, his voice a low rumble. This is Elena. She's brought your belongings. Elena stepped forward, wheeling 2 large suitcases, I packed essentials for you and your daughter. Clothing, toiletries, important documents I found in your desk. And this." She pulled a worn stuffed cat from a shopping bag, its gray fur matted from years of love. "I believe this is Mr. Whiskers?" Gabrielle gasped behind me, relief flooding her small face. I took the cat, feeling its familiar weight, seeing the careful way Elena had handled our things. These weren't strangers grabbing random items. Someone had gone through our apartment methodically, thoughtfully. "Thank you," I managed. "There's also this." Elena handed me a sealed manila envelope. "Mr. Russo asked me to give this to you directly." I took it, feeling the thickness of papers inside. Marcus and Elena were already stepping back into the hallway. "Wait," I called. "The man watching our apartment, is he still there?" Marcus's expression remained impassive. "He's been dealt with." "Dealt with how?" "He won't be watching anymore," Marcus said flatly. "You should get some rest, Ms. Coleman. Mr. Russo will meet with you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I'll be outside if you need anything." The door closed before I could ask more questions. I stared at the envelope in my hands, then at Gabriel, who'd claimed Mr. Whiskers and was holding him close. "I'm hungry," she said, her voice already sounding more stable now that she had her familiar companion back. "Let me see what's in the kitchen." The kitchen was fully stocked, the refrigerator filled with fresh food, the pantry containing everything from pasta to cereal to snacks. On the counter sat another note. "Dinner menu from the hotel restaurant is in the drawer. Order whatever you want. Room service is 24/7. GR." I ordered chicken fingers and fries for Gabrielle, a salad for myself that I barely touched. We ate in silence, the weight of the day pressing down on both of us. After dinner, I ran her a bath in the massive marble bathroom, helped her test her blood sugar, 147, finally back in a reasonable range, and gave her the proper dose of insulin. She fell asleep quickly in the king-sized bed, Mr. Whiskers tucked under her arm, her breathing deep and even. I sat beside her for a long time, watching the rise and fall of her small chest, feeling the magnitude of what I'd agreed to settle over me like a heavy blanket. Only when I was certain she was deeply asleep did I open the manila envelope. Inside were copies of documents I recognized immediately, the spreadsheets I'd compiled, the transaction records I'd flagged, the notes I'd made about the patterns I'd noticed. But there was more. Bank statements I'd never seen, communication logs, photographs of men I didn't recognize entering and leaving Morrison Financial. A letter sat on top, written in the same precise handwriting as the earlier notes. "Grace, by now you understand that this situation is more complex than a simple money laundering case. The Volkov organization has been operating in this city for 5 years. They've infiltrated legitimate businesses, corrupted officials, and eliminated anyone who threatened their operation. You threatened their operation. David Brennan is in protective custody, cooperating with the FBI. He's named you as the person who first discovered the discrepancies. The federal prosecutor wants your testimony, but they can't offer the level of protection you'll need. Government safe houses are secure, but they're temporary. The Volkovs are patient. I can offer permanent protection. My organization has resources the FBI doesn't. More importantly, I have motivation they lack. Marcus Volkov's expansion threatens my interests. Eliminating him serves both our purposes. The choice is yours. But understand that choosing nothing is still a choice, and it's one that puts both you and Gabrielle at risk. I'll see you tomorrow morning. We'll discuss the specifics then. Giovanni Russo. I read it 3 times, each pass revealing new layers of meaning. He'd been watching me before our encounter at the pharmacy. The medication, the hotel, the protection, all of it had been planned. Our meeting wasn't the coincidence I desperately wanted it to be. I was already in his web. The only question was whether I'd struggle against it or accept it. My phone buzzed, making me jump. An unknown number. A text message. "Don't trust Russo. He's using you. A friend. My heart hammered as I stared at the screen. Who could have my number? I'd barely given it to anyone since losing my job, afraid of creditors and bill collectors. I typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "Someone who knows what Russo is. He's not a protector. He's a predator. Get out while you can." I glanced at the door, suddenly aware of how isolated we were. 37 floors up, security downstairs that answered to Giovanni Russo, a driver stationed outside our door. We weren't guests. We were prisoners in a gilded cage. Another message. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. St. Michael's Church on 3rd. Come alone. I'll tell you everything." I stared at the phone, my finger hovering over the delete button. This could be a trap, or it could be someone genuinely trying to warn me. But warn me about what? I already knew Giovanni Russo was dangerous. He'd made no effort to hide that fact. The question was whether he was more dangerous than the alternative. I deleted the messages and powered off the phone, removed the battery for good measure. If someone could text me, they could track me. I tucked the device into a drawer beneath some hotel stationery and returned to the bedroom. Gabrielle slept on, oblivious to the chess game playing out around her. I lay down beside her, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows from the city lights dance across the pristine white surface. Sleep came in fits and starts, interrupted by every small sound. The elevator chiming somewhere down the hall, muted voices from another floor, the hum of the heating system. Each noise sent adrenaline through my system, my body on high alert even as exhaustion pulled at me. At some point, I must have truly fallen asleep, because I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close and Gabrielle shaking my shoulder. "Mom, someone's at the door." I jerked upright, disoriented. The bedside clock read 8:30. I'd slept later than I had in months. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. No, that wasn't my phone. My phone was in the drawer. This was a new device, sleek and black, sitting where my old one should have been. The knock came again, polite, but insistent. I pulled on the hotel robe and went to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Elena, the woman from last night, holding a garment bag. "Ms. Coleman?" Her voice was muffled through the door. "Mr. Russo asked me to bring you something appropriate for your meeting." Appropriate. The word sent a chill through me. I opened the door. Elena entered with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. She hung the garment bag on a hook near the bathroom. "There's a dress, shoes, and accessories. Mr. Russo thought you might want to make a good impression on the federal prosecutor." "I'm meeting with the prosecutor today?" 9:30, Mr. Russo's conference room. He'll brief you first. Elena's expression remained professionally neutral, but something in her eyes suggested sympathy. "I know this is overwhelming, Ms. Coleman, but Mr. Russo keeps his word. If he's promised to protect you, he will." "At what cost?" Elena paused at the door. "The cost of protection is always compliance. But the cost of refusing it?" She glanced at Gabrielle, still sitting on the bed. "That's significantly higher." After she left, I unzipped the garment bag. Inside was a navy dress, simple but clearly expensive, the fabric soft beneath my fingers. Designer shoes in exactly my size, a small jewelry box containing pearl earrings and a delicate necklace. How did he know my size? The question sent ice through my veins. He'd been watching me, studying me, long enough to know what I wore, how I moved through the world, where I was vulnerable. I showered quickly, my mind racing. The new phone sat on the bathroom counter, sleek and foreign. I picked it up, half expecting it to be locked, but it opened immediately. Only 3 contacts programmed: Giovanni Russo, Marcus, and Elena. No other apps, no internet access. A communication device and nothing more. The dress fit perfectly. Of course it did. I stared at myself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. I looked professional, put together, nothing like the desperate mother who'd begged for insulin at a pharmacy counter yesterday. That was the point, I realized. Giovanni was constructing a version of me that would be credible to prosecutors, useful to his purposes, attractive to his plans. The real me, exhausted, terrified, barely holding it together, wasn't someone he needed. Marcus knocked at exactly 9 o'clock. I'd arranged for hotel childcare for Gabrielle, the concierge assuring me their service was fully vetted and secure. She'd been uncertain about staying with a stranger, but the promise of pancakes and cartoons had won her over. The elevator descended smoothly, Marcus standing beside me in silence. We exited into a parking garage where a different black SUV waited. The drive took 15 minutes, weaving through morning traffic to a glass tower in the financial district. The name on the building, Russo Enterprises. We took a private elevator to the 42nd floor, emerging into a reception area that screamed wealth and power. Marble, dark wood, abstract art that probably cost 6 figures. A receptionist with a headset and perfect posture nodded as we passed. Marcus led me down a corridor to double doors that opened into a conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the view breathtaking. A massive table dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs. And at the head of the table sat Giovanni Russo, looking exactly as dangerous as I remembered. He stood as I entered, buttoning his suit jacket in a gesture that seemed automatic. "Grace, thank you for coming." As if I'd had a choice. "Please, sit." He gestured to the chair beside him, not across from him. A subtle power play, putting us on the same side of the table. "We don't have much time before the prosecutor arrives, so I'll be direct." I sat, acutely aware of how close he was. The scent of expensive cologne mixing with something else. Coffee, maybe, or danger. "The FBI's case against the Volkov organization is strong, but it needs your testimony to be airtight," Giovanni began. "You're the person who discovered the money laundering operation. Your documentation is crucial, but more importantly, you're a sympathetic witness. Single mother, whistleblower, retaliated against. The jury will believe you." "You've already decided I'm testifying." "I've decided that testifying is in your best interest," he corrected smoothly. "The alternative is waiting for the Volkovs to find you. They will find you, Grace. It's not a question of if, but when. And when they do, Gabrielle becomes leverage." The casual way he said my daughter's name, the implicit threat, made my hands clench in my lap. "So I testify, help you eliminate a rival, and then what? You let us go?" Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. "We'll discuss the terms after you've spoken with the prosecutor. But I want to be clear about something." He leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes holding mine. "I don't make empty promises. When I told you I'd change your life, I meant it. The question is whether you're ready for that change." Before I could respond, the conference room doors opened. 2 people entered, a woman in a severe pantsuit carrying a briefcase, and a man with a badge clipped to his belt. "FBI." "Ms. Coleman," the woman said, extending her hand. "I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh. This is Special Agent Robert Chen. We'd like to talk to you about Morrison Financial and the Volkov organization." Giovanni stood, drawing their attention. "Ms. Coleman is prepared to cooperate fully, but she'll need assurances about her protection." "The FBI can provide," Agent Chen began. "The FBI," Giovanni interrupted smoothly, "has a safe house program that's been compromised twice in the last 18 months. Ms. Coleman and her daughter need more than a temporary relocation and a new identity. They need permanent security." Attorney Walsh's expression tightened. "Mr. Russo, while we appreciate your concern, For Ms. Coleman's safety, witness protection is a federal matter. And Ms. Coleman's testimony is essential to your case, Giovanni countered. She won't testify unless her safety is guaranteed, not by bureaucratic promises, but by demonstrable protection. They stared at each other, a battle of wills playing out in polite professional tones. I sat frozen, watching my life being negotiated like a business deal. Finally, Attorney Walsh turned to me. Ms. Coleman, is this your position as well? That you require Mr. Russo's protection in order to cooperate with the federal investigation? Everyone looked at me. Giovanni with calculated confidence. The attorney with thinly veiled frustration. Agent Chen with professional assessment. I thought about the man watching our apartment. About David Brennan's betrayal. About Gabrielle's insulin that I couldn't afford until Giovanni Russo had appeared like a dark angel with the power to transform our circumstances. I thought about the anonymous text message warning me that he was a predator. Maybe he was. But he was a predator offering protection from other predators, and right now, that was all that mattered. Yes, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. That's my position. Giovanni's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes suggested satisfaction. He'd won this round. Attorney Walsh set her briefcase on the table with more force than necessary. Fine. Let's discuss what you know about Morrison Financial and the Volkov organization's money laundering operation. For the next 2 hours, I laid it all out. Every discrepancy I'd found, every transaction that had raised red flags, every conversation I'd overheard. They took notes, asked clarifying questions, showed me documents to verify. And through it all, Giovanni sat beside me, silent but present, a constant reminder of the deal I'd made. When we finally finished, Attorney Walsh gathered her papers with crisp efficiency. This is exactly what we needed, Ms. Coleman. Your testimony will be crucial. We'll need you to appear before the grand jury next week. She'll be there, Giovanni said before I could respond, with appropriate security. After they left, the conference room felt suddenly larger, emptier. Giovanni stood and walked to the windows, looking out over the city below. You did well, he said without turning around. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Now he turned, his expression unreadable. You chose survival. You chose your daughter. There's no shame in that. What happens now? Now? He walked back toward me, each step measured, controlled. Now we ensure the Volkovs understand that you're under my protection. That touching you would be a declaration of war. How do you do that? His smile was cold, calculated. Marcus Volkov and I have a complicated relationship. We've been dancing around each other for years, careful not to cross certain lines. But you've given me a reason to be direct. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. It was a photo of me entering the Russo Enterprises building this morning, Giovanni beside me, his hand at my lower back in a gesture that looked almost proprietary. This photo is being sent to Marcus Volkov right now, along with a very clear message. Grace Coleman is mine. Anyone who threatens her answers to me. The possessiveness in his voice, in the image, should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. Something dangerous. I'm not yours, I said quietly. Giovanni's eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. Not yet, he agreed. But you will be, Grace. Because you need what I can provide. Security, stability, protection. And in time, you'll realize that being mine is the safest place you could possibly be. He was right. I hated that he was right. The phone he'd given me buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out, seeing a message from Elena. Gabrielle is asking for you. Everything is fine, but she'd like you to come back soon. I need to get back to my daughter. Of course. Giovanni gestured toward the door, where Marcus had materialized as if summoned by telepathy. Marcus will take you, But Grace? I paused at the door. Don't try to run. Not to St. Michael's Church. Not anywhere. You're being watched. For your protection, of course. But watched nonetheless. My blood went cold. He knew about the text message. About the meeting invitation I'd never planned to attend. How, I told you, I make it my business to know things. His expression softened slightly, something almost human breaking through. You're not my prisoner, Grace, but you are my responsibility now, and I take my responsibilities very seriously. I left without responding, Marcus silent beside me as we rode the elevator down. In the SUV, heading back to the hotel and Gabrielle, I finally allowed myself to process the morning's events. I'd agreed to testify against a Russian mafia organization. I'd accepted protection from a man who was clearly more dangerous than he appeared. And I'd done it all because the alternative was watching my daughter suffer. The anonymous texter had called Giovanni a predator. They weren't wrong. The question was whether I could survive being his prey. The grand jury testimony was scheduled for the following Tuesday. 5 days that stretched and compressed simultaneously, each hour feeling like both an eternity and an instant. Giovanni had moved us from the hotel to a townhouse in an upscale neighborhood, the kind of place with tree-lined streets and doormen who knew everyone's name. More secure, Marcus had explained as he'd driven us there. Easier to monitor who comes and goes. The townhouse was smaller than the penthouse, but still absurdly luxurious. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen with appliances I didn't know how to use, a living room with furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Gabrielle had her own room for the first time in her life, painted a soft lavender with a canopy bed that made her gasp with delight. Elena had become a constant presence, arriving each morning with fresh groceries, scheduling Gabrielle's doctor appointments, even arranging for a tutor since we'd pulled her from school. Temporary safety measure, Elena had assured me, until after the testimony. But I knew temporary had a way of becoming permanent in Giovanni's world. I saw him only once during those 5 days, a brief visit on Friday evening. He'd appeared at the door in dark jeans and a black sweater, less formal than I'd seen him before, but somehow more dangerous for it. The casual clothes made him seem more human, more accessible, which only highlighted how inhuman his control over my life had become. I wanted to check on you, he'd said, standing in the foyer like he owned it. Which, of course, he did. Make sure you have everything you need. We're fine, I'd replied, keeping my voice neutral, professional, as if this were a business arrangement and nothing more. His eyes had traveled past me to where Gabrielle sat at the kitchen counter, working on math problems with her tutor. She looks healthy. The new insulin pump is working well? Yes. Thank you. You don't need to thank me, Grace. He'd stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne again, that distinctive scent that I was starting to associate with danger and protection in equal measure. Taking care of you and Gabrielle isn't a favor. It's an investment. There was that word again. Investment. As if we were stocks he'd purchased, assets to be managed and protected for future returns. What exactly are you expecting as a return on this investment? I'd asked, proud of how steady my voice remained. His smile had been slow, calculated. Your testimony, your cooperation, and eventually, your trust. Trust has to be earned. I'm aware, which is why I wanted to give you this. He'd pulled a folder from his messenger bag, setting it on the hall table. Everything you asked for. Background on Marcus Volkov, information about the federal case, details about what happens after you testify. I hadn't asked for any of that, but he was right. I'd wanted it, needed it. The not knowing had been eating at me. Each unanswered question, another weight pressing down. After he'd left, I'd opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were documents that painted a picture of a world I'd only glimpsed through movies and news reports. Marcus Volkov, born in Moscow in 1982, immigrated to the U.S. in 2005. On paper, he was a legitimate businessman, owner of several restaurants and import companies. The reality was darker. The FBI believed he controlled drug distribution in 3 states, ran protection rackets throughout the city, and had ordered at least a dozen murders. The money laundering through Morrison Financial was just one piece of a larger criminal empire. And I'd stumbled into the middle of it because I'd been good at my job, because I'd noticed patterns that didn't make sense, because I'd tried to do the right thing. The file also contained information about Giovanni himself, though notably less detailed. Russo Enterprises owned properties throughout the city, legitimate holdings worth hundreds of millions. But there were gaps in the documentation, questions about how he'd acquired his initial capital, whispers about connections to organized crime families. He'd included that deliberately, I realized, letting me see the shadows in his past, acknowledging what he was without explicitly confirming it, a gesture of transparency that was somehow more unsettling than if he'd hidden it completely. Now, 5 days later, I sat in another conference room in the federal courthouse, Attorney Walsh across from me, running through my testimony one final time. "The grand jury will ask about specific transactions," she said, her tone all business. "Stick to the facts. Don't speculate about what the money was for or who it belonged to. Just describe what you found and what you reported. And if they ask why I waited so long to come forward, tell them the truth. You reported the discrepancies to your supervisor immediately. You were fired in retaliation. You've cooperated with federal investigators as soon as they approached you." She paused, her expression softening slightly. "Grace, you're the victim here. Don't forget that." Victim. The word sat heavy in my chest. I'd never thought of myself that way. I'd made choices, taken actions, tried to control what I could. But she was right. I'd been victimized. By David Brennan, by Morrison Financial, by the circumstances that had left me desperate enough to accept Giovanni's help. A knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Agent Chen entered, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "David Brennan is dead." The room tilted. "What?" "He was found in his cell this morning. Apparent suicide." Chen's tone made it clear he didn't believe it was suicide at all. He'd been in protective custody, maximum security. Someone got to him anyway. Attorney Walsh's face had gone pale. "How is that possible?" "That's what we're trying to determine." Chen turned to me, his gaze intense. "Ms. Coleman, this changes things. Brennan was a key witness, but his testimony was problematic because of his criminal involvement. You're now our primary witness. The case depends almost entirely on your testimony and documentation." The weight of that statement pressed down on me. I wasn't just a witness anymore. I was the witness. The one person standing between Marcus Volkov and continued freedom. "Does this mean I'm in more danger?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "It means we need to increase your security measures," Chen said carefully. "We're recommending immediate placement in witness protection. Tonight. We have a secure facility ready." "No." The word came out before I could think it through. "My daughter has school, doctor's appointments, a routine. I can't just disappear." "Grace." Attorney Walsh leaned forward, her voice urgent. "David Brennan was in a maximum security facility with round-the-clock surveillance. If they could reach him there, they can reach you anywhere. Witness protection is your only option." "What about Giovanni Russo's protection?" The look that passed between Chen and Walsh spoke volumes. "Mr. Russo," Chen said slowly, "is not someone we recommend you rely on for security." "Why not? He's kept me safe so far." "Has he?" Chen pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos, then turned it toward me. "This was taken yesterday outside your townhouse." The photo showed a man sitting in a car across the street, telephoto lens pointed toward our windows. Dark hair, sharp features, expensive watch. Not one of Giovanni's men. I'd learned to recognize them by now. Who is that? Dmitry Sokolov, Marcus Volkov's cousin and head of security. Chen swiped to another photo, this one showing the same man having coffee with someone whose face was partially obscured. This was taken 3 months ago. Notice who he's meeting with. He zoomed in on the second person, and my stomach dropped. Even with half his face hidden behind a coffee cup, I recognized him. The sharp jawline, the expensive watch, the way he held himself. Giovanni Russo. They know each other, I whispered. More than that, Chen said grimly. They've been in regular contact for years. Whatever Russo has told you about protecting you from the Volkovs, whatever arrangement he's offered, you need to understand something crucial. He leaned forward, his expression deadly serious. Giovanni Russo and Marcus Volkov aren't enemies. They're business partners. The room spun. The townhouse. The protection. The promises. All of it suddenly felt like a trap whose jaws were slowly closing around me. No, I said, shaking my head. That doesn't make sense. He's helping you build the case against Volkov. Why would he do that if they're partners? Because, Attorney Walsh said quietly, eliminating Volkov eliminates competition. We believe Russo has been planning this for years. Getting us to take down Volkov removes a rival without Russo having to get his hands dirty. And your testimony is the key to making it happen. I stood abruptly, needing to move, needing space to think. This couldn't be right. Giovanni had saved us. The insulin, the townhouse, the security. He'd given us everything we needed when no one else would help. But he'd also been watching me before we ever met. He'd known about the Morrison financial investigation. He'd orchestrated everything, including our chance encounter at the pharmacy. Ms. Coleman, Chen's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. We need to move you into protective custody now. We have a team standing by. I need to talk to him first. That's not advisable. I don't care. I turned to face them, feeling something hard and sharp crystallize in my chest. Anger, maybe. Or betrayal. Or just exhaustion at being a pawn in everyone else's games. You want me to testify? You want me to help you take down the Volkov organization? Then I get to ask Giovanni Russo why he lied to me. Face to face. Walsh and Chen exchanged looks. That could be dangerous. Everything is dangerous, I snapped. At least this way, I'll know what I'm dealing with. 30 minutes later, I was back in Giovanni's conference room at Russo Enterprises. But this time, I wasn't the desperate mother begging for help. This time, I had information, and I had questions. Giovanni entered exactly on time, his expression neutral, but his eyes sharp, assessing. He'd know something had changed. Men like him always knew. Grace. He moved to take his usual seat beside me, but I held up a hand. Sit across from me. This isn't a friendly conversation. His eyebrow raised slightly, but he complied, settling into the chair opposite me with fluid grace. What happened? David Brennan is dead. I heard. Unfortunate. His tone was professionally sympathetic but not surprised. Not surprised at all. The FBI thinks you and Marcus Volkov are business partners. Now I got a reaction. His eyes narrowed slightly, his posture shifting in minute ways that suggested heightened attention. Do they? They have photos of you meeting with his head of security. Regular contact over years. They think you're using me to eliminate a rival while keeping your own hands clean. Giovanni was quiet for a long moment, studying me with that intense focus that made me feel like he could see through skin and bone directly into my thoughts. What do you think? He finally asked. I think I want the truth. Not the version you've been selling me, not the image you've constructed, the actual truth about what I am to you and what happens after I testify. He leaned back in his chair, a gesture of calculated relaxation that fooled neither of us. The truth is complicated, then uncomplicated. A slight smile touched his lips, nothing warm in it. You really want to know? The full picture? Yes. All right. He stood, walking to the windows, his back to me as he spoke. Marcus Volkov and I have known each other for 6 years. We've had business dealings, mostly territorial agreements about who operates where. We're not friends, but we've maintained a professional relationship. So the FBI is right. You're partners. We were acquaintances with mutual interests. That changed 18 months ago when Volkov started using Morrison Financial to launder money. That firm handles investments for 3 of my legitimate businesses. By using it for money laundering, Volkov drew federal attention to accounts I needed to keep clean. He turned back to face me, his expression hard. I don't appreciate other people's criminal activity contaminating my legitimate operations, Grace. So, yes, I've been building a case to eliminate him. Not because I'm some noble protector of justice, but because he's bad for my business. And I'm just a convenient tool in that plan. Initially, yes. He moved closer, each step deliberate. You were the whistleblower who documented everything. The FBI's case was weak without your testimony. By offering you protection, I ensured you'd testify, which serves my interests. The blunt honesty should have stung less than it did, but hearing him confirm what I'd suspected still felt like a punch to the gut. But, he continued, now standing directly across the table from me, something changed. You weren't what I expected. What did you expect? Someone desperate enough to be easily manipulated. Someone who'd testify, and then disappear into witness protection, grateful for whatever scraps of security the FBI could provide. His eyes held mine. But you're not that person. You're stronger than you realize. Grace. You stood up to your employer when it would have been easier to stay quiet. You've been protecting your daughter against impossible circumstances. And when I offered you a way out, you didn't just take it blindly. You questioned it, pushed back, demanded clarity. Pretty words, but you still lied to me. I omitted information. There's a difference. Not to me, there isn't. He nodded slowly, accepting that. Fair enough. So now you know the truth. What are you going to do with it? The FBI wants me in witness protection, tonight. And what do you want? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. What did I want? Safety for Gabrielle, obviously. Security, stability, a life where we weren't constantly looking over our shoulders. But there was more to it now. There was the way Giovanni had looked at Gabrielle with genuine concern. The way he'd ensured we had everything we needed, down to Mr. Whiskers. The way he'd been honest just now, even when the truth made him look manipulative. I want to know what happens after I testify, I said. The FBI says witness protection. You've implied something different. Tell me exactly what you're offering. Giovanni pulled out the chair across from me and sat, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. I'm offering permanent protection. Not a safe house in Montana with a new name and a cover story that falls apart under scrutiny. Real security. A life here, in the city, with resources and support. In exchange for what? In exchange for working for me. My legitimate businesses need someone with your skills. Someone who can analyze financial data, identify irregularities, ensure compliance. You're overqualified for what Morrison Financial had you doing, Grace. You could be running entire accounting departments. So, I testify against Volkov, then become your employee? Not just an employee, a valued member of my organization, with appropriate compensation, benefits, security. He paused, something shifting in his expression. And with my protection, permanent protection. Anyone who threatens you or Gabrielle would be declaring war on me. It was essentially what he'd offered before, but now stripped of comforting illusions. He wasn't a knight in shining armor rescuing us from danger. He was a businessman making an investment, and I was the asset he intended to acquire. The FBI says you and Volkov meet regularly, that his head of security watches my house. The meetings are business. Volkov and I maintain communication because it's safer than open conflict. As for Dmitry Sokolov watching your house, Giovanni's expression hardened. That stopped 3 days ago. Permanently. The way he said permanently sent ice through my veins. What did you do? I made it clear that you're under my protection. Dmitry understands boundaries. He won't be a problem anymore. And the FBI? They think I'm being manipulated, that you're using me. The FBI, Giovanni said with barely concealed disdain, wants to use you just as much as they claim I do. Their witness protection program puts you in a safe house for 6 months, maybe a year. Then you're on your own with a new identity and no real support system. They care about your testimony, Grace, not your life afterward. He wasn't wrong. Attorney Walsh had been focused entirely on the case, on what I could provide for their investigation. The practical realities of my life after testifying had been vague promises and bureaucratic assurances. Why should I trust you? I asked quietly. You've admitted you manipulated the situation from the beginning. You knew about me before we ever met. Everything has been calculated to serve your interests. You shouldn't trust me, he said bluntly. Trust is for people who have the luxury of better options. You don't have that luxury. What you have is a choice between 2 imperfect solutions: the FBI's temporary protection and uncertain future, or my permanent security with clear expectations. Clear expectations of what? Work for me. Let me ensure you and Gabriel are protected, housed, provided for. In return, you testify against Volkov. You manage accounts for my legitimate businesses, and you stop questioning whether there's a better alternative. His gaze intensified. There isn't. This is the best option you have. Accept it. The blunt honesty was almost refreshing. No pretty promises, no false reassurances. Just the cold calculation of a man who knew exactly what he wanted and how to get it. I need to think about it. You have until the grand jury testimony Tuesday morning. After that, the choice will be made for you one way or another. He stood, signaling the end of our negotiation. Marcus will take you back to the townhouse. Elena will be there with Gabrielle. Wait. I stood as well, something else occurring to me. That night at the pharmacy, was it really a coincidence? Or did you arrange it? Giovanni's smile was slight, knowing. Does it matter? Yes, it matters to me. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I knew you'd been fired from Morrison Financial. I knew about your daughter's condition. I had someone monitoring your movements, waiting for an opportunity to approach you naturally. When you went to the pharmacy that day, when you couldn't afford the medication. He shrugged. It was the perfect moment. So everything was staged. The encounter, the rescue, all of it. The circumstances were arranged. Your reaction was genuine. He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. And so was mine, Grace. I expected to find a desperate woman I could manipulate. Instead, I found someone worth protecting for reasons that have nothing to do with testimony or business interests. I don't believe you. You don't have to, but it's the truth nonetheless. He reached out, his fingers barely brushing my cheek in a gesture so unexpected it froze me in place. Think about my offer. Really think about it. Because after Tuesday, there's no going back. Whatever choice you make becomes permanent. He left, the conference room door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded final. I stood there, my cheek still tingling from his brief touch, my mind racing through everything he'd revealed. The truth, he'd said. But which truth? The calculated manipulator who'd orchestrated our meeting? The businessman eliminating a rival through legal means? Or something more complicated? Something that showed itself in the way he touched my cheek, looked at my daughter, promised protection that went beyond business necessity? Marcus was waiting outside to drive me back to the townhouse. The ride passed in silence, my thoughts too tangled to make conversation even if he'd been inclined to talk. Elena was at the townhouse when we arrived, sitting with Gabrielle at the kitchen counter, helping her with a science project. The domestic normality of the scene struck me with sudden force. This could be our life. Security, stability, someone else to help carry the weight of single parenthood. All I had to do was accept that the man offering it was dangerous, manipulative, and had his own agenda that I'd never fully understand. "Mom!" Gabrielle looked up, her face bright with excitement. "Elena is helping me build a volcano. We're going to make it erupt tomorrow." "That's wonderful, baby." I moved to kiss the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Whatever else was complicated, this was simple. Protecting her, providing for her, ensuring she had a life worth living. That night, after Gabrielle had fallen asleep and Elena had left, I sat in the living room and finally allowed myself to cry. Not the quiet tears I'd shed in the pharmacy, not the frustrated anger from the conference room. Real, ugly sobbing that came from somewhere deep and broken inside. I cried for the life I'd lost, the security I'd thought I'd built. I cried for the impossible choice in front of me, and I cried because some part of me, some traitorous, desperate part, wanted to accept Giovanni's offer, not just because it was practical, but because he'd made me feel protected in a way I'd never felt before. The phone he'd given me buzzed. A text from Giovanni. "Take whatever time you need, but know this, I don't make the same offer twice." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Tuesday morning was 3 days away. 3 days to decide whether to trust a man who'd manipulated me from the start, or take my chances with a government program that saw me as a case file rather than a person. 3 days to choose my prison, because whatever I decided, I understood now that I'd be giving up my freedom either way. The only question was, which cage came with better amenities? Sunday morning arrived with unexpected snow, the first of the season. I stood at the townhouse window, watching fat flakes drift past the glass, thinking about how weather could transform everything so quietly. The city looked softer under its white blanket, less dangerous, almost peaceful. Gabrielle pressed her nose against the window beside me, her breath fogging the glass. "Can we go outside? Make a snowman?" "Not today, sweetheart." "Why not? It's Sunday. We always do fun things on Sunday." Always. The word carried weight it shouldn't have. Our Sundays used to consist of walks to the free museum, peanut butter sandwiches in the park, small pleasures that cost nothing. Now we lived in a townhouse worth millions, but we couldn't step outside without security clearance. "Maybe later," I said, the lie tasting bitter. Marcus appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "Mr. Russo would like to take you and Gabrielle to brunch. His car will be here in 30 minutes. It wasn't a request. It never was. "Tell him we're not," I started, but Gabrielle's excited squeal cut me off. "Brunch! Can I wear my new dress? The blue one Elena bought me?" I looked at my daughter's face, bright with excitement at the prospect of an outing, and felt my resistance crumble. She'd been cooped up in this townhouse for days, her tutor and Elena her only companions besides me. A few hours in a restaurant with other people, with normalcy, even if that normalcy was manufactured by Giovanni Russo. How could I deny her that? "Fine," I told Marcus. 30 minutes. The restaurant was in a historic hotel downtown, the kind of place with vaulted ceilings and crystal chandeliers, where the silverware probably cost more than my monthly rent used to be. Giovanni waited in a private dining room, dressed casually in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater, looking annoyingly perfect despite the early hour. "Grace, Gabrielle," He smiled at my daughter, and I hated how genuine it seemed. I'm glad you could join me. Gabrielle, who'd been shy around him during his previous brief visits, seemed to have overcome her hesitation. Mr. Russo, did you see the snow? It's the first snow I've seen all year. I did see it. Beautiful, isn't it? He pulled out a chair for her, then one for me, a gesture of old-world courtesy that felt both natural and calculated. I thought we could enjoy it together. After brunch, there's an indoor ice skating rink nearby. Private lessons available, if you're interested. Gabrielle's eyes went wide. Really? Mom, can I? Please? I wanted to say no. Wanted to refuse this transparent attempt to win my daughter's affection, to make himself indispensable in her eyes as well as mine. But looking at her hopeful face, at the innocent joy of a child who'd been through too much uncertainty lately, I couldn't find the words. We'll see, I said, which we both knew meant yes. Brunch was an elaborate affair. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pastries that probably required a French culinary degree to produce. Gabrielle ate with careful enthusiasm, mindful of her manners in a way that made my heart ache. When had my 8-year-old learned to be so cautious about taking up space? Giovanni asked her about her studies, her interests, her volcano project with Elena. He listened attentively, responded thoughtfully, made her laugh with stories about his own disastrous attempts at science projects as a child. It was a masterful performance of charm and genuine interest, and I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. After we finished eating, he turned his attention to me. Marcus tells me the FBI visited you again on Friday. They did. And what did they want? I glanced at Gabrielle, who'd become absorbed in drawing on the paper tablecloth with the crayons a server had provided. To discuss Tuesday's testimony, and to strongly recommend witness protection, which you declined. I said I needed to think about it. Grace. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. We should discuss this, properly. There are things you need to understand before Tuesday. Things like the fact that you and Marcus Volkov are business associates? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. So, the FBI shared that information? Interesting. Is it true? Yes, and irrelevant. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of relaxed confidence. Gabrielle, sweetheart, would you like to go see the kitchen? Chef Marco makes the most amazing chocolate sculptures. I'm sure he'd love to show you. Gabrielle looked at me for permission. I nodded, and she hopped down from her chair, following the server who'd materialized at Giovanni's subtle gesture. Once she was gone, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Don't use my daughter to manipulate me, I said quietly. I'm not. I genuinely enjoy her company. She's bright, curious, resilient, qualities she inherited from her mother. He paused. But I also recognize that we need to have conversations she shouldn't overhear. Is that manipulation or practicality? With you, I'm never sure where the line is. Fair enough. He refilled my coffee cup, the gesture oddly domestic. Let me be clear about something, Grace. My professional relationship with Marcus Volkov is exactly that. Professional. We've maintained territorial boundaries, avoided open conflict, conducted occasional business together. That's how this world works. You don't survive by making enemies of everyone. But you're helping the FBI destroy him. I'm helping the FBI prosecute him for specific crimes that threaten my legitimate interests. There's a difference. After his conviction, someone else will step into his role, likely his cousin Dmitri, who's more reasonable and less reckless. Life continues. Business adapts. How can you be so cold about it? Because being emotional about business decisions gets people killed. He set down his coffee cup with precise care. You think I should feel guilty about eliminating a rival? I don't. You think I should apologize for using your situation to achieve my goals? I won't. I've been honest about my motivations, Grace. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. No. You're just pretending my daughter and I are more than convenient tools. You're not convenient at all, he said, and something in his tone made me look up sharply. If you were convenient, I would have delivered you to the FBI on day one, let them handle your protection and moved on. But I didn't. I brought you into my home, my organization, my life. I've spent resources and time ensuring your safety. I've made enemies by claiming you as mine. None of that is convenient, Grace. It's complicated and messy, and potentially dangerous to everything I've built. Then why do it? He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying me with unsettling intensity. Because some investments are worth the complication. Before I could respond, Gabrielle returned, her face smeared with chocolate, clutching a small sculpture shaped like a swan. Look what Chef Marco made me. Can we keep it? Of course, Giovanni said, his professional mask sliding back into place seamlessly. Ready for ice skating? The rink was in a converted warehouse, massive and gleaming. True to his word, Giovanni had arranged for a private session. An instructor waited on the ice, professional and patient as she fitted Gabrielle with skates. I stood at the rink's edge, watching my daughter glide awkwardly across the ice. Her face split with a grin so wide it made my chest hurt. When was the last time I'd seen her this happy? This carefree? She's a natural, Giovanni said, appearing beside me. He'd changed into skates himself, moving with the kind of easy athleticism that suggested he'd grown up on the ice. You don't have to do this, I said. The restaurant, the skating, the gifts. You've made your point. I understand what you're offering. Do you? He gestured toward the ice. Come skate with me. We'll talk. I don't know how to skate. I'll teach you. It's easier than you think. Something about the way he said it, the quiet confidence, made me nod despite my better judgment. He helped me into skates, his hands steady as he laced them, checking the fit with practiced efficiency. Then he took my hand, the first time he'd actually held my hand, and led me onto the ice. I immediately started to slip, but his grip tightened, keeping me upright. Relax, I've got you. Easy for you to say. You're not the one about to fall on your face. You won't fall, not while I'm holding you. He began moving backward, pulling me forward, his movements smooth and controlled. Small steps. Don't think too much. Just feel the motion. We moved slowly around the rink, Gabrielle and her instructor at the far end. The cold air bit at my cheeks, the sound of blades on ice creating a rhythmic soundtrack. And Giovanni held my hand the entire time, steady and sure, his presence a constant anchor. The FBI can't protect you the way I can, he said, after we'd made a full circuit. Their program is designed for short-term safety, not permanent security. You'd be relocated to some small town where you don't know anyone, given a cover story that never quite fits, and left to rebuild your life from scratch with minimal support. At least I'd be free. Would you? You'd spend every day looking over your shoulder, wondering if someone recognized you, if your cover was compromised. You'd never be able to use your real skills or build a real career. And Gabrielle would grow up with a different name, unable to connect with anyone from her past, unable to put down roots. He pulled me closer as we rounded a turn. Is that really freedom, Grace? Or is it just a different kind of prison? And what you're offering isn't. What I'm offering is protection within your existing life. You keep your name, your identity. Gabrielle grows up in a good school, with access to the best medical care, with stability and security. You work for me doing what you're already trained to do, using your skills in ways that matter. Yes, there are boundaries. Yes, you'll be under my protection, which means accepting my authority. But you'll have a life, Grace. A real one. We'd made another full lap. I was starting to get the rhythm of skating, my movements less jerky, more fluid. Or maybe I was just getting used to the feeling of his hand holding mine, guiding me. What happens after I testify? I asked. When Volkov is convicted and the FBI case is closed? You continue working for me, managing accounts for my legitimate businesses, living in a property I own. Not the townhouse. That's temporary. Something better, with room for Gabrielle to grow. Maybe a yard. Good schools nearby. Owned by you. Under your control. Under my protection, he corrected. There's a difference. Is there? It sounds like I'd be trading one form of dependency for another. He stopped skating, pulling me to a halt as well. We stood at the center of the ice, Gabrielle's laughter echoing from across the rink. You've been dependent your entire adult life, Grace. On employers who didn't value you. On systems designed to keep people like you struggling. On circumstances beyond your control. What I'm offering is a different kind of dependency. One where your basic needs are met, where you have resources and support, where your daughter's future is secure. In exchange for what? My freedom? My autonomy? In exchange for your loyalty, your discretion, your willingness to trust that I know how to keep you safe better than anyone else can. His grip on my hand tightened slightly, not painful, but insistent. I'm not asking you to love me, Grace. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking you to recognize reality and choose the option that gives you the best possible future. You make it sound so simple. Because it is simple. Everything else is just emotion and fear clouding your judgment. Gabrielle skated over, slightly wobbly but proud. Mom, did you see? I did a whole lap by myself. I saw, baby. You were amazing. I pulled her into a hug, grateful for the interruption. Giovanni checked his watch. We should go. I have something else to show you. The drive took 20 minutes, heading into a residential neighborhood I didn't recognize. Tree-lined streets, beautiful old homes set back from the road, the kind of area where people planted gardens and knew their neighbors. The SUV pulled up in front of a Victorian house, painted soft gray with white trim, a small front yard dusted with snow. What is this? I asked. Your future home, if you accept my offer. Giovanni opened his door, gesturing for us to follow. The house was stunning. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, 3 bedrooms upstairs, a finished basement, a yard with a swing set already installed. Every room had been furnished with care, not ostentatious luxury, but comfortable quality. Gabrielle's room was painted her favorite shade of purple, with a reading nook by the window and shelves waiting for books. The neighborhood has an excellent public school, 3 blocks away, Giovanni said as we toured the second floor. There's a park 2 streets over with a playground. The kitchen has been stocked. I had Elena help with the furniture and decorating, but if you want to change anything, just say so. I stood in the master bedroom, looking out the window at the snowy yard below, feeling something dangerous unfurl in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of surrender. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Giovanni came to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. Because you deserve stability, Grace. You and Gabrielle both deserve a home that's yours, a place where you can build a life. This isn't charity. You'll earn this through your work for me. But it's also not contingent on that alone. Then what's it contingent on? On you accepting that you're mine to protect now. He turned to face me fully, his expression more open than I'd seen it. I told you I don't make empty promises. When I said I'd change your life, I meant it. This is how I keep that promise. By giving you security, stability, a future. All you have to do is stop fighting against the inevitable and accept what I'm offering. And if I say no? If I choose witness protection instead? His jaw tightened slightly. Then you choose wrong, and I can't protect you from the consequences of that choice. It wasn't a threat, exactly, more a statement of fact. If I entered witness protection, I'd be outside his sphere of influence. Whatever happened to me after that wouldn't be his responsibility. Gabrielle's voice echoed from downstairs, calling for me to come see something she'd found in the basement. Giovanni and I stood there, the air between us heavy with unspoken implications. I need to think, I said finally. Then think. You have until Tuesday morning. But Grace? He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek in an echo of that gesture from the conference room. Stop thinking about what you're giving up, and start thinking about what you're gaining. Sometimes the smart choice isn't the one that makes you feel free. It's the one that keeps you alive. That night, back at the townhouse, I sat in Gabrielle's room and watched her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so innocent, unaware of the impossible decision weighing on me. The house Giovanni had shown me would be perfect for her. Good schools, safe neighborhood, stability she'd never had before. All I had to do was accept that it came with strings attached. Strings in the form of a dangerous man who saw me as an investment, who'd manipulated our meeting, who wanted my loyalty and cooperation in exchange for security. My phone buzzed. A text from Giovanni. The house is yours regardless of your decision. You and Gabrielle deserve a home. The rest we can figure out as we go. I stared at the message for a long time. It was the closest thing to softness he'd shown. A gesture that suggested maybe, possibly, he cared about more than just his business interests. Or maybe it was just another calculated move in a game I still didn't fully understand. Either way, I was tired of fighting, tired of being afraid, tired of watching my daughter suffer because I couldn't provide what she needed. I typed back, I'll testify on Tuesday. After that, we'll discuss the terms of my employment with Russo Enterprises. His response came immediately. Smart choice. Get some rest. Marcus will drive you to the courthouse Tuesday morning. I set the phone aside and crawled into bed beside Gabrielle, pulling her sleeping form close. Tomorrow was Monday, the day before everything changed. The day before I officially stopped running and started accepting that Giovanni Russo had been right all along. Some prisons came with better amenities than others, and if I was going to be trapped either way, I might as well choose the cage with a yard, good schools, and a man who promised to protect us at any cost. Even if that man was dangerous enough to make the promise credible. The grand jury testimony took 3 hours. I sat in a windowless room, facing 12 strangers, and recounted every detail of what I'd found at Morrison Financial. The transactions, the patterns, the shell companies with addresses that led nowhere. Attorney Walsh guided me through the testimony with practiced efficiency, presenting documents I'd compiled months ago, evidence I'd thought would save my career instead of ending it. Through it all, I felt Giovanni's presence like a physical weight, even though he wasn't in the room. He was somewhere in the courthouse, waiting, his influence extending through hallways and closed doors in ways I was only beginning to understand. When I finished, the jury foreman thanked me for my cooperation. Attorney Walsh walked me out, her expression satisfied. You did excellent work, Ms. Coleman. This testimony, combined with Brennan's documentation, should be enough for an indictment. Should be? Will be, she corrected, catching herself. The evidence is overwhelming. Marcus Volkov will be arrested within the week. Agent Chen appeared in the hallway, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression grim. When he saw us, he ended the call abruptly. We have a problem. Walsh's satisfaction evaporated. What kind of problem? Marcus Volkov knows about the testimony. Someone leaked information from the grand jury proceedings. He turned to me, his voice urgent. Ms. Coleman, we need to move you into protective custody immediately. Volkov's organization will be looking for you. My stomach dropped. How could they know already? The testimony was sealed. Someone on the inside is feeding them information, Walsh said, her professional mask cracking slightly to show genuine concern. Grace, Agent Chen is right. You need to go now. My daughter is at the townhouse with Elena. We'll collect her, Chen said, but you can't go back there. It's not safe. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared at the end of the hallway, his large frame moving with surprising speed. Ms. Coleman needs to come with me. Mr. Russo is waiting. Chen stepped between us. Ms. Coleman is under federal protection now. She's coming with us. With all due respect, Agent Chen, federal protection is what got David Brennan killed. Marcus's voice remained calm, but his hand moved subtly toward his jacket. Mr. Russo has a secure location ready. Ms. Coleman's daughter is already on her way there. Ice flooded my veins. What do you mean she's already on her way? I didn't authorize anyone to move Gabrielle. Mr. Russo gave the order when the leak was discovered 30 minutes ago, Marcus said, pulling out his phone and showing me a photo. Gabrielle sat in the back of a familiar SUV, Elena beside her, both of them clearly unharmed. The timestamp showed it had been taken minutes ago. She's safe. But we need to get you to the same location. Now. This is kidnapping, Walsh said sharply. You can't just take a child without parental consent. The parent, Marcus said, looking directly at me, can consent right now by coming with me, or she can fight about jurisdiction while Volkov's people close in. Your choice, Ms. Coleman, but you need to make it fast. The federal agents moved to block our path. Chen's hand rested on his weapon. The courthouse hallway, filled moments ago with ordinary people conducting ordinary business, had transformed into a standoff. Grace, Walsh said, her voice taking on a pleading quality. Don't do this. Once you go with Russo, we can't protect you. You'll be entirely in his control. And if I go with you, Gabrielle is in his control either way, I said, the reality of my situation crystallizing with painful clarity. At least if I'm with her, I can protect her. You can't protect her from Giovanni Russo, Chen said flatly. No one can. He's not a protector, Ms. Coleman. He's a criminal who's using you as a pawn in a gang war. Maybe, I agreed. But right now, he's the criminal who has my daughter. So I'm going with Marcus. Chen's hand tightened on his weapon. I can't let you do that. You can't stop her, Marcus said, his tone conversational, but his posture shifting into something more dangerous. Ms. Coleman is making a choice. As a federal agent, you're required to respect that choice unless you're placing her under arrest. Are you arresting her, Agent Chen? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications. Walsh and Chen exchanged looks, some silent communication passing between them. No, Walsh said finally. We're not arresting her. But Grace, if you leave with Russo's people, you're on your own. The FBI can't help you after this. I understand. I moved toward Marcus, each step feeling like wading through water. Let's go. The SUV was waiting at a side entrance, engine running. Marcus hurried me inside, and we pulled away before the federal agents could reconsider. I stared at my phone, at the photo he'd shown me, needing the reassurance that Gabrielle was truly safe. Where are we going? I asked. Mr. Russo's estate, 40 minutes outside the city. Most secure location he owns. How did he know about the leak? Marcus's expression remained impassive. Mr. Russo has sources everywhere. When he heard grand jury information was being shared with Volkov's organization, he took immediate action to secure you and your daughter. We drove in silence through the city, then onto a highway heading north. The urban landscape gradually gave way to suburbs, then to more rural areas dotted with large properties and gated estates. Finally, we turned onto a private road, passing through security gates that opened automatically. The estate was massive, A main house that looked like something from a period drama, all stone and windows and architectural grandeur. Outbuildings scattered across manicured grounds, security personnel visible at strategic points. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. Giovanni stood on the front steps, waiting. He'd changed from his morning suit into dark jeans and a black sweater, looking less like a businessman and more like exactly what he was, a man who wielded power through means both legal and otherwise. "Grace," he said as I emerged from the SUV. "Are you all right?" "Where's Gabrielle?" "Inside with Elena. Safe, unharmed. I gave you my word I'd protect her. I keep my word." He gestured toward the house. "Come inside. We need to talk about what happens next." The interior matched the exterior's grandeur. High ceilings, expensive art, furniture that belonged in museums. But it also felt lived in, comfortable. A home, not just a showpiece. Gabrielle ran down the hallway when she heard my voice, throwing herself into my arms. "Mom, this place is amazing. There are horses. Can I ride the horses?" Elena said maybe tomorrow if you say it's okay. I held her tight, breathing in her familiar scent, feeling the solid reality of her in my arms. Whatever else was complicated, this was simple. She was safe. For now. "We'll see, baby," I said, the phrase I'd used so often it had become automatic. Elena appeared behind her. "I'll take Gabrielle to the kitchen for dinner. Chef has prepared her favorite, chicken nuggets and fruit." After they left, Giovanni led me to a study lined with books, a fire crackling in a stone fireplace. He poured 2 glasses of scotch, handing me one before settling into a leather chair. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Drink. Then we'll discuss what the FBI told you about the leak." I sat, more from exhaustion than obedience, and took a sip of the scotch. It burned going down, but the warmth was welcome. "They said someone on the inside is feeding information to Volkov, that he knows I testified. More than that, he knows what you testified to, which specific accounts you identified, which transactions you flagged. Someone gave him your complete testimony." Giovanni swirled his scotch, watching the amber liquid catch the firelight. "That's not a casual leak, Grace. That's someone deeply embedded in the investigation. Someone with access to sealed grand jury proceedings." "Who?" "That's what I intend to find out. But in the meantime, you and Gabriel stay here. This estate has security the FBI's safe houses can't match. Volkov would need an army to reach you here." "How long?" "As long as necessary. Days, weeks, however long it takes to neutralize the threat." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "I told you I keep my promises, Grace. You testified like I asked. Now I'm keeping my end of the bargain. You're under my protection. Permanent, total protection." "At what cost?" "You keep saying protection, but what does that really mean? Am I a prisoner here?" "You're a guest, free to move about the estate, free to request anything you need. But yes, you're confined to the property until the threat is resolved. Is that a prison? Perhaps, but it's one with horses and a chef and the best security money can buy." I stood, needing to move, to pace, to do anything but sit still under his calculated gaze. "The FBI said you're just using me, that eliminating Volkov serves your business interests and nothing more." "The FBI isn't wrong. Eliminating Volkov does serve my interests." He stood as well, moving to stand before the fire. "But that doesn't make their offer any better than mine. They wanted to use you too, Grace. The difference is, I'm honest about it." "Honest," I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "You manipulated our first meeting. You orchestrated everything to serve your purposes. That's not honesty." "I never pretended to be something I'm not. I told you from the beginning that this was an investment, that I had my own agenda. The FBI pretended they were protecting you out of altruism, that their witness protection program was about your safety and not their case." He turned to face me fully. At least I respect you enough to tell you the truth, even when that truth makes me look calculating and cold. Because you are calculating and cold. Yes, he agreed simply. I am. But I'm also effective. And right now, effective is what you need. A knock at the door interrupted whatever I might have said. One of Giovanni's men entered, his expression grim. Sir, we have a situation. Dmitry Sokolov just arrived at the front gate. He's requesting to speak with you. Giovanni's expression hardened. Alone? With 2 men. He says it's urgent. About Ms. Coleman. My heart hammered. Dmitry Sokolov, Marcus Volkov's cousin, his head of security. The man whose photo Agent Chen had shown me. Proof of Giovanni's connection to the Volkov organization. Let him in, Giovanni said. Show him to the west parlor. No weapons past the entrance. 2 of my men in the room at all times. After the guard left, Giovanni turned to me. Go upstairs. Stay with Gabriel. Don't come down until I send for you. What does he want? That's what I intend to find out. But Grace? His voice stopped me at the door. Whatever you hear in the next few hours, whatever you're told, remember this. I gave you my word I'd protect you. That word means everything. It's the only currency that matters in my world. I went upstairs, finding Gabrielle in a bedroom that looked like it had been designed specifically for a little girl. Soft colors, comfortable furniture, toys arranged on shelves, a window overlooking the estate's gardens. Elena sat in a chair by the window, a book in her lap. Everything all right? She asked quietly. I don't know. Someone from the Volkov organization is here. Giovanni is meeting with him now. Elena's expression tightened, but she nodded. Mr. Russo knows what he's doing. We're safe here. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I sat beside Gabrielle on the bed, helping her with a puzzle she'd found, trying to act like everything was normal. Like we weren't in a mansion under armed guard, while dangerous men negotiated something downstairs. An hour passed, then another. Gabrielle eventually fell asleep, exhausted by the day's events. I carried her to the bed, tucking her in with the care that came from years of single motherhood. A soft knock made me turn. Giovanni stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Walk with me, he said quietly. We went to a terrace overlooking the grounds, the night air cold against my face. Security lights illuminated the perimeter, and I could see guards stationed at intervals, their presence both comforting and unsettling. What did Dmitry want? I asked. To deliver a message from Marcus Volkov. Giovanni's hands gripped the terrace railing, his knuckles white. He knows you testified. He knows what you said. And he's offering a deal. What kind of deal? He drops the contract on you, lets you live in peace, in exchange for me backing off the federal investigation. Convince you to recant your testimony, claim you were mistaken about what you found. Without your testimony, the case falls apart. My stomach turned. And if you refuse? Then he targets everyone associated with you, starting with your daughter. Giovanni's voice remained controlled, but fury simmered beneath it. He's trying to use Gabrielle as leverage to force my hand. What did you tell him? He turned to face me, his dark eyes reflecting the security lights. I told him that threatening you or your daughter is the same as declaring war on me, that I'll burn his entire organization to the ground before I let him touch either of you, and that if he's smart, he'll take what's coming from the feds and serve his time quietly, because the alternative is significantly worse. You threatened him. I promised him, Giovanni corrected. There's a difference. Threats are empty words. Promises are guarantees. What does that mean for us? For Gabrielle and me? It means you stay here, under my protection, until this is resolved. It means Volkov's people will try to get to you, and my people will stop them. It means this situation just escalated from complicated to dangerous. He moved closer, close enough that I could see the tension in his jaw, the calculated fury in his expression. But it also means I'm done playing nice, done with territorial agreements and professional courtesy. Marcus Volkov threatened what's mine. That can't stand. I'm not yours, I said automatically, though the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. Aren't you? His hand came up, cupping my cheek with surprising gentleness. You're living in my house, under my protection, raising your daughter with resources I provide. You testified because I arranged it. You're safe because I ensure it. When did you stop being yours and start being mine, Grace? Was it at the pharmacy? The townhouse? The moment you accepted that Victorian house I offered you? I wanted to pull away, to deny it, to maintain some fiction of independence. But he was right. Somewhere along the way, through a series of small surrenders disguised as practical choices, I'd become his responsibility, his investment, his possession. I hate this, I whispered. I know. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, the gesture almost tender. But hate doesn't change reality. You're mine now, under my protection, within my sphere of influence, part of my world. And that means when someone threatens you, they threaten me. When they target Gabriel, they declare war on everything I've built. So what happens now? Now. His hand dropped away, and he turned back to survey his estate, his fortress, his kingdom. Now we wait for Volkov to make his next move. And when he does, I respond with overwhelming force. This ends one way, Grace, with him eliminated and you permanently safe. How we get there depends on how smart or how stupid he chooses to be. And if the FBI was right, if this is all just a gang war and I'm caught in the middle, then you're caught in the middle with the most powerful man in the city protecting you, he said simply. I've faced worse odds than Marcus Volkov. So have you, for that matter. You survived being fired, blacklisted, left destitute with a sick child. You're stronger than you think, Grace. Strong enough to survive whatever comes next. We stood there in silence, watching the night settle over the estate. In the distance, I could hear horses moving in their stables, the sound of guards making their rounds, the hum of security systems ensuring nothing approached undetected. Giovanni was right about one thing. I had survived worse. I'd survived poverty, desperation, the terror of watching my daughter suffer from something I couldn't fix. I'd survived discovering corruption and being punished for doing the right thing. Maybe I could survive being owned by a dangerous man if it meant Gabriel had a future. Maybe survival was enough. I should get back to Gabriel, I said finally. Elena will stay with her tonight. You and I need to discuss logistics, security protocols, communication procedures. What happens if something goes wrong? He gestured toward the house. Come, there's much to cover before morning. We went inside, back to the study, where he laid out the reality of our new existence in meticulous detail. How I'd signal if there was danger. How his men would respond to various threats. How Gabriel would be protected at all times. It was clinical, efficient, terrifying in its thoroughness. This was his world, one where violence was always a possibility, where trust was measured in loyalty and protection, where power flowed from the barrel of a gun as much as from wealth and influence. And I was part of it now. Not by choice exactly, but by circumstance and necessity, and the slow accumulation of compromises that had led me here. When he finally finished, when all the protocols had been explained and acknowledged, he walked me to the door of the bedroom where Gabriel slept. Sleep if you can, he said. Tomorrow we start building your new life here. You'll begin reviewing accounts for my businesses, getting familiar with the operations. Gabriel will start lessons with a private tutor. We establish a routine, create normalcy within this new reality. How long will we be here? As long as it takes. Could be weeks. Could be months. But Grace, he touched my cheek again, that gesture becoming familiar, almost comfortable. However long it takes, you'll be safe. That's my promise to you. My word. And in my world, that's the only guarantee that matters. I went inside, closed the door, and leaned against it, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. Through the window, I could see security lights, guards, the barriers between us and the outside world. We were safe, protected, provided for. We were also trapped. And somewhere out there, Marcus Volkov was planning his next move in a game I still didn't fully understand, with stakes that kept rising every day. But at least we were together. At least Gabrielle was asleep in a comfortable bed, her insulin pump working perfectly, her future no longer dependent on whether I could scrape together enough money for her next prescription. For that, I could accept almost anything, even being owned by Giovanni Russo. 3 weeks passed in a strange, suspended reality. The estate became our world, beautiful, comfortable, and absolutely inescapable. Gabrielle adapted with the resilience of childhood, delighting in the horses, the grounds, the attention from Elena, and the household staff. For her, this was an adventure, an extended vacation in a place more luxurious than anything she'd ever experienced. For me, it was something else entirely. A gilded cage where every comfort came with invisible strings attached. I'd settled into a routine of sorts, mornings reviewing accounts for Giovanni's businesses, luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, real estate holdings that sprawled across 3 states. The work was legitimate, complex, engaging. I'd forgotten what it felt like to use my skills on something that mattered, to feel competent and valued. Giovanni joined me most afternoons in the study, reviewing my findings, asking pointed questions, treating me like a professional equal rather than a rescued charity case. Those hours were strange, almost normal, if I ignored the armed guards outside and the fact that I couldn't leave the property. "You found the discrepancy in the hotel accounts," he said one Thursday afternoon, studying the report I'd prepared. 300,000 unaccounted for over 6 months. How? "The reservation system shows occupancy rates that don't match the restaurant revenues," I explained, warming to the subject despite myself. "If rooms are occupied, people eat. The numbers should correlate. When they don't, it suggests someone is either skimming from the restaurant or reporting false occupancy." "Which?" "False occupancy. Look at the housekeeping supply orders. They don't support the claimed occupancy rates either. Someone's been reporting phantom guests, probably to justify taking cash payments that never get properly recorded." Giovanni's expression was unreadable as he processed this information. "The general manager?" "Most likely. He has access to all the relevant systems." "Good work." He made a note on his phone. "I'll have it investigated. If you're right, and I suspect you are, you've just saved me several $1,000,000 in potential losses. Just doing my job. It's more than a job, Grace. You're protecting my interests, which means you're protecting your own. Your security, Gabrielle's future, it all ties to the health of these businesses." He set down his phone, giving me his full attention. "You're good at this. Better than good. Why were you wasting your talent at Morrison Financial?" It was all I could get. Single mother, no connections, community college degree. Places like Morrison were lucky to have me, or so they made sure I understood. They were lucky to have you. They just didn't deserve you. He stood, moving to pour himself a drink from the bar cart. "After this situation with Volkov is resolved, I'm making you CFO of the hotel division. Full executive authority, significant salary increase, benefits package that includes the best medical care for Gabrielle." I stared at him, not quite processing. "CFO? Giovanni, I'm not qualified." "You're more qualified than anyone currently in that position. You just proved it." He returned to his chair, scotch in hand. "I don't make offers. I don't mean Grace. You've earned this. Say yes. It was exactly what I'd worked toward my entire career. The kind of position I'd dreamed about but never thought I'd achieve. And he was offering it casually, like it was inevitable, like I deserved it. Maybe I did. Yes, I heard myself say. Thank you. Don't thank me. You'll earn every penny. His phone buzzed, and his expression shifted as he read the message. We need to talk about something else. Marcus Volkov was arrested this morning. My heart jumped. The FBI moved forward with the indictment? Yes. Based on your testimony and the documentation you provided, he's being held without bail, charged with money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy. The trial will take months, maybe a year. But he's off the streets. So we're safe? We can leave? Giovanni's silence answered before his words did. It's not that simple. Volkov has loyalists, people who will want revenge for his arrest. Dmitry Sokolov, in particular, blames me for setting up the situation that led to his cousin's downfall. But you did set it up. I facilitated the inevitable. Volkov was careless, drew too much attention. His arrest was only a matter of time. I simply ensured the timing served my purposes. He leaned forward, his expression serious. But Dmitry doesn't see it that way. He sees you as the catalyst, the witness who provided the testimony that convicted his cousin. And he sees me as the puppet master who pulled your strings. Is he wrong? No. But being right doesn't make him less dangerous. Giovanni set down his drink with careful precision. Intelligence suggests he's planning something, a move against either you or me, possibly both. We need to be prepared. Prepared how? By ensuring you and Gabriel are never vulnerable. By keeping you here, under my protection, until the threat is neutralized. How long will that take? As long as necessary. He stood, coming around the desk to stand before me. I know this isn't the life you imagined, Grace. I know you feel trapped. But it's temporary. Once Dmitry is dealt with, once the threat is truly gone, you'll have more freedom. The house in the city, normal routines, a real life. Still under your control. Still under my protection, he corrected, his hand coming up to cup my face in that gesture that had become familiar, almost comforting. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing it looks the same. Then you're not looking closely enough. His thumb traced my cheekbone, the touch sending unwelcome heat through me. Protection means I keep you safe, provide for you, ensure your daughter has everything she needs. Control would mean dictating your choices, limiting your autonomy, treating you as property. I'm not doing that, Grace. You're keeping me prisoner in your estate. I'm keeping you alive. His voice hardened slightly. Dmitry Sokolov has killed 17 people that we know of. He's methodical, patient, and completely loyal to his cousin. He will come for you, Grace. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And when he does, I intend to be ready. Before I could respond, an alarm blared through the house, sharp, insistent, terrifying. Giovanni's expression transformed instantly, the cultured businessman vanishing, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. Stay here, he commanded, already moving toward the door. Lock it behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Marcus. What's happening? Security breach. Someone's on the property. He pulled a gun from a desk drawer, checking it with practiced efficiency. Remember the safe room I showed you? Get Gabrielle and Elena there. Now. He was gone before I could argue, the door closing behind him. I heard his footsteps running down the hallway, heard shouting in the distance, heard something that might have been gunfire. I ran. Up the stairs, down the corridor to Gabrielle's room where Elena was already gathering her, the older woman's face pale but determined. Safe room, I gasped. Giovanni said, "I know. Come on." Elena had Gabrielle by the hand, leading her toward a hidden door in the library that I'd barely noticed during our tour. Behind it was a reinforced room with supplies, communications equipment, and locks that could withstand anything short of explosives. We sealed ourselves inside, the heavy door closing with the finality that made my chest tight. Gabrielle pressed against me, her eyes wide with fear. "Mom, what's happening?" "Just a drill, baby. Like a fire drill at school. We're practicing being safe." The lie felt thin, transparent. The continued sounds of shouting, the unmistakable crack of gunfire, made it clear this was no drill. Elena activated a monitor showing security camera feeds throughout the estate. I watched armed men moving through the grounds, not Giovanni's security team, whose movements I'd learned to recognize. These were intruders, at least 6 of them, coordinating their approach with military precision. On another screen, I saw Giovanni and his men engaged in what could only be described as a firefight near the main entrance. He moved with lethal grace, his expensive clothes and cultured demeanor stripped away to reveal the dangerous man beneath. "They're trying to breach the main house," Elena said quietly, her eyes on the monitors. "But Mr. Russo's security is holding them back." "Who are they?" "Volkov's people. Dmitri's personal team." She pointed to one figure directing the others, and I recognized him from the photos Agent Chen had shown me. Dmitri Sokolov himself, here, leading an assault on Giovanni's estate. "He's here for me," I whispered. "He's here for revenge," Elena corrected. "But Mr. Russo won't let him get it." We watched the battle unfold on the screens, each moment feeling like an eternity. Giovanni's men were outnumbered but better positioned, using the estate's architecture to their advantage. Still, the attackers pushed forward with determination born of desperation. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. One of the intruders had broken away from the main group, moving toward the back of the house, toward the wing where we'd just been. He was carrying what looked like an explosive device. "Elena, there's someone—" "I see him." She was already on the radio, alerting Giovanni's security. "South corridor, 1 hostile with explosives. Repeat, explosives." On the screen, I watched 2 of Giovanni's men intercept the intruder, just as he reached our former position. The confrontation was brief and brutal, ending with the intruder on the ground and the explosive device safely removed. But the victory was short-lived. More attackers appeared, these ones clearly professionals, moving with coordinated precision. They were pushing toward the main house, toward us, with renewed intensity. "They know we're here," I realized with dawning horror. "They know about the safe room." Elena's expression confirmed my fear. Someone gave them the estate's layout. Someone on the inside. Betrayal. Again. Just when I'd started to feel secure, started to trust in Giovanni's protection, someone had sold us out. The monitor showing the safe room corridor flickered, then went dark. Then another screen. Then another. Someone was systematically cutting the security feeds. "That's not good," Elena said, her hand moving to the gun holstered at her waist. "Ms. Coleman, take Gabrielle to the back corner, behind those supply shelves. Whatever happens, you keep her quiet and you stay hidden." "What are you going to do?" "My job. Protecting you." She moved to position herself between us and the door, weapon ready, her stance professional despite the fear I could see in her eyes. Gabrielle whimpered against me. I pressed her face into my shoulder, murmuring reassurances I didn't believe, praying to gods I'd stopped believing in years ago. The sounds outside the safe room grew louder. Footsteps, voices speaking Russian. The distinct mechanical sound of weapons being readied, then silence. Absolute, terrible silence. The safe room door shuddered. Once, twice. Someone was trying to breach it. Elena raised her weapon, her finger on the trigger, her whole body coiled and ready. The door exploded inward with a deafening blast that left my ears ringing. Smoke filled the room. Through it, I saw figures entering, saw Elena fire 3 times before she was cut down, her body crumpling to the floor with terrible finality. I pressed Gabrielle tighter against me, trying to make us smaller, invisible, praying the smoke and chaos would hide us. A hand grabbed my arm, hauling me up with brutal strength. I struggled, tried to scream, but another hand clamped over my mouth. Through streaming eyes, I saw Dmitry Sokolov's face, cold and satisfied. "Grace Coleman," he said in heavily accented English. "You have caused much trouble. Now you pay." He dragged me toward the door. I fought with everything I had, but he was too strong, too experienced. Gabrielle's screams echoed behind me as another man grabbed her, and that sound, my daughter's terror, broke something fundamental inside me. "Please," I begged, the word muffled against Dimitri's hand. "Please don't hurt her. She's just a child. She has nothing to do with this." "She is leverage," Dmitry said coldly. "You want her to live? You come quietly. You tell the FBI you were mistaken about your testimony. You recant everything. I can't. Then she dies. Simple choice, no?" He gestured to the man holding Gabrielle, who pressed a knife against her throat. Not enough to cut, but enough to make his point. Every maternal instinct I possessed screamed at me to comply, to do whatever necessary to save her. But I'd seen enough movies, heard enough stories, to know that compliance wouldn't save us. Once I served their purpose, we'd both be eliminated. "All right," I said, letting my body go limp, feigning defeat. "All right, I'll do it. Just don't hurt her." Dmitry smiled, satisfied. He started to lower his hand from my mouth. And that's when Giovanni appeared in the doorway like an avenging angel. His gun raised, his expression colder than anything I'd ever seen. "Let them go, Dmitry," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Ah, Giovanni, finally you arrive." Dmitry pulled me closer, using me as a shield. "Drop weapon or I kill your woman." "She's not my woman. She's my accountant." Giovanni's aim never wavered. An excellent accountant, certainly, worth protecting, but not worth dying for. If you want to kill her, go ahead. But then you lose your leverage, and I kill everyone in this room. The casual dismissal in his voice cut deeper than it should have. After everything, after all his promises of protection, he was willing to sacrifice me to maintain his position. Or was he? I looked at Giovanni's face, really looked, and saw something in his eyes that contradicted his words. A calculation, a plan, something that suggested his cold pragmatism was an act for Dimitri's benefit. "You bluff," Dmitry said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. "I never bluff. Ask anyone who's worked with me." Giovanni took a step forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to release Grace and Gabrielle. You're going to leave my estate. And you're going to disappear from this city permanently. Do that, and I'll let you live." "Or what? You shoot through her to kill me? You risk the child?" Dmitry laughed, but it sounded forced. "You care too much, Giovanni. Everyone knows this. You protect her too strongly, provide too much. You are weak." "Weak?" Giovanni's smile was terrible to see. "Dmitry, I've been waiting for you to make this move. Do you think I didn't know you'd try something? That I didn't plan for exactly this scenario?" As if on cue, red laser dots appeared on Dmitry and his men, sniper sights from positions they hadn't anticipated. Dmitry's eyes widened as he realized the trap he'd walked into. "Every angle is covered," Giovanni continued conversationally. "Every exit is blocked. My men are positioned throughout the estate. You're not leaving here with Grace or Gabrielle. The only question is whether you leave in handcuffs or a body bag. You would risk her life? The bullet could hit her, hit the child. I wouldn't risk them at all, Giovanni said, and his voice dropped to something that made my spine shiver. Which is why my men aren't aiming at you, Dimitri. They're aiming at your men, the ones holding Gabrielle, the ones blocking the exits, every single person you brought with you, except you. He raised his own weapon slightly, and I understood. He was taking personal responsibility for this shot, for this moment. You have 3 seconds to release Grace, and tell your man to release the child. After that, everyone except you dies, and then we have a very different conversation about what happens next. The red dots remained steady, unmoving, absolute in their promise of violence. Dimitri's men shifted nervously, realizing they were in an impossible position. 1, Giovanni said. Dimitri's grip on me loosened slightly. 2, the man holding Gabrielle lowered his knife fractionally. 3, enough. Dimitri released me, shoving me away. Release the child, he barked in Russian. Gabrielle stumbled forward, and I caught her, pulling her against me, feeling her solid reality in my arms. We were alive. For now. Giovanni never lowered his weapon. Smart choice. Now you leave. You go back to whatever hole you crawled out of, and you never threaten what's mine again. This is not over. Yes, Dimitri. It is. Giovanni's voice carried absolute finality. Marcus is going to prison. Your organization is finished. Take what's left of your people and disappear, or I'll finish what the FBI started and eliminate you myself. That's not a threat. It's a promise. Dimitri stared at him for a long moment, hate and calculation warring in his expression. Then he gestured to his men, and they began backing toward the door. You have made powerful enemy Giovanni Russo, he said. This I do not forget. I've had powerful enemies before. Most of them are dead. Giovanni's gun never wavered. Marcus will drive you to the airport. I've arranged a flight to Moscow. One way. Take it, or take your chances with the FBI. I've provided them with enough evidence to charge you with tonight's assault, and about 15 other crimes. Your choice. After they'd gone, escorted by a dozen of Giovanni's security team, the safe room felt cavernous and empty. I sat on the floor, holding Gabrielle, both of us shaking with delayed shock. Giovanni approached slowly, kneeling before us. Are you hurt? Elena, I whispered, seeing her body still lying where she'd fallen. She tried to protect us. She did her job, and she did it well. His voice was gentle now, the cold calculation gone. Grace, look at me. I met his eyes, seeing something raw and unguarded there. I meant what I said to Dimitri, not the part about you being just an accountant. The part about protecting what's mine. His hand came up, cupping my face with infinite care. You're mine, Grace. You and Gabrielle both. Mine to protect, mine to provide for, mine to keep safe. And I keep my promises. You called me your woman. You are. His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. Has been since the moment you walked into that pharmacy. Maybe even before. The question is whether you can accept that. I should have said no. Should have demanded he let us go. Should have run to the FBI and taken my chances with witness protection. But I was so tired of running, so tired of fighting, so tired of pretending I could protect my daughter alone. And looking into Giovanni's eyes, seeing the possessive determination there, I realized something fundamental. I didn't want to run anymore. Okay, I whispered. Okay? Okay. I'm yours. We're yours. Whatever that means, whatever comes with it, I accept it. Something shifted in his expression, satisfaction and possession, and something that might have been relief. That means everything, Grace. Protection, security, stability. The CFO position I offered. The house in the city. A life for Gabrielle where she never worries about her next dose of insulin or whether we can pay the bills. And in exchange? In exchange, you work for me. You trust me to keep you safe. And you stop fighting against the inevitable. He pulled both of us into his arms, Gabrielle between us, his embrace solid and unbreakable. You're mine now. Permanently. Completely. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. It should have felt like surrender, like defeat, like giving up every ounce of independence I'd fought so hard to maintain. Instead, it felt like coming home. But 6 months later, the house Giovanni had shown me, the Victorian with the purple bedroom and the swing set in the yard, had become truly ours. Gabrielle was thriving in her new school, her diabetes perfectly managed with the best medical care money could buy. She had friends, activities, a normalcy I'd never been able to provide before. I'd settled into my role as CFO of Giovanni's hotel division, my skills finally being used to their full potential. The work was challenging, engaging, important. I was good at it, and everyone knew it. And Giovanni was exactly what he'd always been. Dangerous, possessive, demanding, but also protective, generous, surprisingly tender with Gabrielle. We'd fallen into a relationship I couldn't quite define. Not quite employer and employee, not quite captor and captive, but something more complicated. He owned me, in every way that mattered. I worked for him, lived in his property, moved within his sphere of influence. But he'd kept every promise he'd made. We were safe, provided for, protected. Dmitry Sokolov had disappeared to Russia and hadn't been heard from since. Marcus Volkov was in federal prison, his organization dismantled. The threat that had driven us to Giovanni's estate was gone. But we'd stayed anyway. Because sometimes the cage with the best amenities was also the place you actually wanted to be. I stood in our kitchen on a Thursday evening, helping Gabrielle with her homework, when Giovanni arrived home from work. He kissed the top of Gabrielle's head, squeezed my shoulder, and disappeared upstairs to change. This was our life now. Domestic, stable, normal on the surface while being absolutely extraordinary underneath. Mom? Gabrielle looked up from her math problems. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. What makes you ask that, baby? I'm happy. Happier than I've been in forever. I just want to make sure you're happy too. I looked around our beautiful kitchen, thought about my challenging work, about the security and stability we had now, thought about Giovanni upstairs, the man who'd manipulated our meeting, but had kept every promise since. Yeah, sweetheart, I said, realizing it was true. I'm happy. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. It wasn't the independence I'd fought for. But it was good, solid, real. And sometimes, good enough was actually perfect. Giovanni appeared in the doorway, changed into casual clothes, a slight smile on his face as he watched us. Dinner in 20 minutes? Sounds perfect, I said. He moved behind me, his arms circling my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. A possessive gesture, a claiming one. A reminder that I belonged to him. I leaned back into his embrace, accepting it, accepting him, accepting this life we'd built from the ashes of my old one. The pharmacy promise, he'd called it. A promise to change our lives. He'd kept it. And I'd kept mine. To trust him, to work for him, to accept being his. It was enough. It was everything.